Hey, Grant, it looks like we got an audience showing up here. We got a few people in the webinar room with us. If we're having a little bit of difficulty here, so if my camera freezes or whatever, just you guys that are listening, bear with us. We might have to do a few changes here as we go on the fly, but we're going to try our best to make this work. It's like my computer has been off for a few days because of Thanksgiving, Grant, and it's like me, it doesn't want to go back to work again. So I don't know what the trouble is here. But hey, welcome everybody. If you can hear me talking and see my face on the screen, if you don't mind, just pop in there to the chat or the Q&A and just let us know that you can hear us before we get started. We've got a good group of images that Grant and I are going to talk about today. I'll tell you who Grant is here in a minute if you haven't met him yet. And we'll get this thing started. So I will wait just a second to see if we have any comments or questions coming in. Yep. Pat says, hi, Russell. And then Sue says, all good. So, Grant, I think people can hear us. So just so everybody knows in the audience, because we're doing this by the miracle of the internet. And, you know, we're showing a bunch of pictures and we're broadcasting everything. I'm in Texas. I'm in rural Texas. Grant is right outside of Glacier National Park. I guess that's where you are today, Grant, right?
Yep, Montana.
In Montana. So, you know, when you get all of these things that are kind of conspiring together, where we're sending all these pictures and you're seeing me talk and you're hearing Grant talk, and we're doing it over the internet, sometimes things don't work out exactly right, but we'll work through those issues as we get them. And so, but I think everything's going good right now. Again, welcome everybody. My name is Russell Graves. I'm coming to you live from Hackberry Farm here in rural Northeast Texas. Grant, you're a new face to the webinars. Tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Grant. I'm a photographer and a relatively new guide with Backcountry Journeys. I live up here, like Russell said, in Montana. I was born and raised in Colorado, though, but love being in the mountains. And yeah, I'm excited to see your guys' images and talk about them.
I love Christmas time. I got to tell you guys something. I am married to the Queen of Christmas. And so she's been like chomping at the bits for like months to ready to start decorating. And I'll be honest with you, she got an early jump on it back in November. But she got well, you can see it behind me here. See my Christmas tree she put up in my office behind me. So I'm just wondering where your Christmas tree is, Grant.
Well, I actually will tell you right after we're done here, we're going to head out to the forest and cut one down and bring it to our house. So Christmas starts at my house today, too.
Oh, good. Well, I'm excited. I always love Christmas. You don't have kids yet, but I have two kids. They're almost, well, I say they're grown. I've got a 21-year-old daughter, and you've met my son, 17-year-old son, Ryan. We still talk about Santa Claus around our house because I told them when they were little that when they quit believing in Santa Claus quits coming. So we still love Christmas around the Graves house. So anyway, let's get started. So while we go through this, everyone that's listening, I want to make this a dialogue and not a monologue. If you have any questions or comments as we go through this presentation today or go through this image review today, just feel free to type in there and let us know, and we'll answer them as we go along. I know half of everything there is to know, and Grant knows the other half. And so if I don't know it, Grant will know it. That's the pressure I'm putting on you today, Grant.
Sounds good.
And also, I'll tell you kind of how I do these things, Grant, so you know and everyone else knows. I downloaded the pictures literally 2 minutes before. Well, you know this, Grant, because you were on backstage with me. But literally 2 minutes before we went live, I was importing the images in the Lightroom. So I'm going to show you a Lightroom screen today that will just go from image to image. I have sorted them by capture time. I don't know who took the pictures. I didn't even look that far at them. All I did was download the photos. We all uploaded them. So if you put a picture in, right at the end, I think I started downloading about 11:45, trying to get the pictures ready. So if you upload any pictures after 11:45, chances are I didn't get them. If we don't get them in this, just send us a note through the chat, and then I will we'll go back and email you some comments or whatever about them. We'll figure out how to make that right. So, Grant, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let me push all the magical buttons here and get my screen shared. Oops, let me bring this guy back up. Okay, that's our first image. Give me a second to get everything arranged on my screen so I can see everything. Can you see a picture there? Should be coming up shortly.
Yes, just got it.
Oh, and that's another thing I need to tell you. There's a little bit, because we're sending all this stuff over the interwebs, there's a little bit of a lag time. So by the time I push the button, a lot of times you may hear me go silent for a second while everything changes. I can actually see the screen and see what everyone else sees while I'm talking on these things. To help save bandwidth, I'm going to turn my camera off so you can't see me. So you should see me going dark in a minute, but as long as you can hear me, and confirm that if you don't mind, I'll just keep talking. Everything good on your end?
It's good on my end.
Okay, here we go. Let's look at this first picture. Do you want to start, Grant, or you want me to start?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, let me make one more change here. Oops, dadgummit. Hang on. I made it where I couldn't see my screen. I'm just going to do it like that so we can look at it like that. Okay. I can actually see my sidebars on the screen, but you can't see them. This looks to me, usually I'll just, so everyone knows, I'll just kind of talk through an image and try to process it in my head what I'm looking at. So I think aloud a lot. So I'll just kind of think aloud and really start kind of talking through what I think about this picture as I go through it. It looks like I'm not sure where this is. It looks like a yurt somewhere. From a purely compositional landscape standpoint, it checks the boxes for me. I mean, definitely use the rule of thirds. You got this rule of thirds where the rocks are breaking up the sky. This yurt here in the foreground is in the lower rule of thirds. I mean, it's if I turn on my grid lines there, you can see it pop in there. You can see what I mean. I mean, it from a rule of thirds standpoint, you really nailed it here. The two things, and again, when I critique an image, and let me make this clear, I told Grant before we started here, it's not like I'm curing cancer with any of my critiques. So these are my opinions and these are Grant's opinions. So take them with a grain of salt, what you think. A lot of times you're really kind of, I think in image critiques, you're projecting what that absolute ideal thing would be, how you could the ideal scenario that would make a picture so much better. Sometimes that ideal is not possible, but I know when I do image critiques, I'll kind of project in a perfect world, this is how it would look. Well, we know we don't live in a perfect world, but these are some of the things that I look at when I'm critiquing my own photos, because believe me, I critique my own photos a lot. I would say, with that in mind, I would say in a perfect world, I think I'd like this shot. I mean, the direction of the lighting is great. I wonder what it would look like if it was shot at first light with that really golden light. What do you think, Grant?
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. Compositionally, I really like it. I love these shots where you sort of combine a human element into the natural landscape. And I think you place the yurt, especially the foreground one, really well. And I like having the secondary yurt in the background that gives a little more context to the location and where you're at. But yeah, my only nitpick on it would be like the light is like mid-morning or early afternoon, and yeah, first light or last light, depending on if this is sunrise or sunset, I think would probably help a little bit. But I also, like Russell said, like that's a nitpicky thing in a perfect world. And sometimes when you're traveling, and I understand you're there when you're there, and you have to shoot it when you shoot it. So, but compositionally, I really like it. I like the placement of the two yurts, and it really draws my eye into the background.
What it might have been cool too, and I don't know who was living in these yurts or staying in these yurts, but even if you added and I know you do this a lot, like I do, Grant, for magazines and commercial work, if you'd added a person either walking in or walking across the scene in one of the yurts, it's just maybe something to think about in the future.
Yeah.
Nice job though.
Yeah.
This is kind of interesting here. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. It looks like, looks like some old ruins. I'm not sure where this is either, but to me, it doesn't look American. It looks more European. I could be wrong about that.
Could be is it Great Wall of China? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm only vaguely. I mean, I'm familiar with the Great Wall of China by name, but I've never been there before. But yeah, I mean, kind of the same thing. The one thing that I'm struggling with on this picture a little bit is I wish there was. I kind of see the attempt at the leading line of the wall sort of coming in here towards the camera, but it seems to me like it needs a little something more in this lower left-hand corner from a compositional standpoint, just to kind of help balance everything out. And again, because I don't know where it is, I don't know if you can take a step to the left or take a step to the right to kind of play some different compositions. But I mean, my first thought is if it had a little more to balance it, kind of in this what I'm going to call dead space, it might kind of change the dynamic of the picture a little bit.
Yeah, I agree, and I think part of the reason that lower left corner feels kind of empty or something is also just that it's dead branches. Like, had that been filled with, lots of colorful fall foliage, it might be a little more interesting. But I tend to agree with you that maybe even a crop in from the left a little bit, sort of resolves that corner a little bit and pushes the leading line of the front wall a little bit more towards your corner. But again, this is nitpicky, and I also understand this is probably another situation where you're traveling internationally and you're there when you're there. And I think it's an interesting shot of a really cool spot for sure.
No, it is. I'd love to go there, but again, it's you're so right. When you're there, and we've all been there before. I mean, whether you're doing a backcountry journeys tour, or whether you're doing a vacation somewhere, or whether you're doing a shoot for a magazine or some kind of commercial client. I mean, you try your best to get there when it's best opportunity, but doesn't always work out that way. But other than that, I mean, I think that as far as the time of day this was taken, the lighting on this is fantastic. Just like you say, it's just got that little, it's lacking that little something in the lower left-hand corner.
Mm-hmm.
So I come from I'm a brother and the son of a United States Army soldier. So having been to this spot before, it's a moving location. The National Cemetery in Washington D.C. is just a moving spot to see all the men and women who have given the ultimate sacrifice to our country. And to me, this composition really, and again, if we kind of frame this from a commercial standpoint or editorial standpoint, to me, Grant, this one really checks a lot of the boxes because it tells stories in layers. You've got all the perfectly aligned headstones in the foreground, and then you've got that separation of the trees, and then the Washington Monument in the background, and it creates those layers. It really is. I mean, to me, this is a good composition. I don't have. Maybe I'm emotionally connected to it just because of my background, but I think this one I think this one's a nice image. And congratulations on the presence of mind to shoot this vertically. Whoever shot this picture, I know a lot of people, digital cameras have, in some ways, have created sort of the death of composition because it's easy to go back and crop everything like you want it. And maybe this one was, but if this one was shot natively as a vertical like this, nice presence of mind to think about that.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add, I mean, I agree with all that, is sort of in my eyes, the key to this composition, which you did really well, is the space around the Washington Monument with the trees right there. Like getting that clean separation around that monument from those tree branches is absolutely critical. And had that just barely even been touching, that would have been the first thing I said. But yeah, I mean, it's a really strong composition. You fit it in there really well. It's really intentionally composed and carefully composed. So I think it's really well done.
Yeah, and you said something there that really makes a lot of sense that we talk about a lot, especially on these photo tours, is compose with intention. I mean, think about what you're, especially with landscape photography. With wildlife photography, a lot of times you're just spraying and praying.
Yeah.
But with landscape photography, you've got the time here to just really think about what you're doing. And so whoever did this picture, they put a little thought into it.
Yeah.
I'll let you kick off with this one, Grant. You go first on the next one.
All right, Lake Louise, one of my favorite spots.
Do I see you swimming out there? Is that you in the distance?
Little chilly up there to be swimming in that lake.
Okay.
I have dunked a foot in it a time or two before, though. I'll say that. Um, this is awesome conditions. I love capturing these mountain lakes like after that first storm, but before they've frozen over and the ice gets covered in snow. It's also, this is a lake that's like a real iconic lake. Like I recognize it immediately without even having, with having the clouds hanging so low. But it's such an iconic spot, and you have such beautiful conditions that I'm not bothered at all by the fact that you can't see the summit of Mount Victoria back there. The only thing I'll ding you on right now is it looks a little crooked to me. So I think you could straighten that out, straighten your horizon out. But otherwise, I do like the light. I like the atmosphere, and yeah, it's just. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased because I've been there before, but it takes me right there, standing on that shore. I really like it. It's a beautiful spot, beautiful light, beautiful atmosphere. You just got to watch those horizons, but that's a super easy, quick fix.
Yeah, you can see there, I popped up the tic-tac-toe grid on top of it, and you can see what Grant's talking about there. It over on the left side of the horizon, or the left side of the lake, it pinches down pretty good, and it's got a little more space over on the right. But like Grant said, that's a super, super easy fix. And I just fixed it right then. And look, I'm as guilty as anybody, especially when you shoot wide angle lenses. I don't know if it's I don't know that's in my brain that makes me do that. But when I'm shooting a wide angle lens, I got to be really careful about horizons because I get them crooked all the time. So that's really easy to do. But
yes, so do I. I was saying this to someone the other day that doesn't matter how long I spend on my tripod trying to get it straight. It's like the first thing I do with every photo in Lightroom is straighten it back out.
and even now with these cameras that have the electronic level on them, where you can get them level, I look at the camera on the tripod with it showing dead level, and to me it still looks unlevel when I'm looking at it through the camera. So I don't know.
Well, and that's an interesting thing because sometimes you wouldn't think this is the case, but sometimes level is sort of subjective.
Yeah.
Like what really is true level? Like there's pure electronically leveled pure level, like what your camera would say or what a bubble would say. But if you're shooting a valley that kind of slopes down in one direction, or you're a lake shore that kind of winds out diagonally, sometimes you have to go with what looks straight more than what truly is straight.
And then you add the distortion that the wide angle lenses give it.
Yeah.
It's a whole new game. But I agree with what you said on this picture here. It's the reflections are killer. The color is phenomenal, and to add, for me, just a little spotlight on top of the mountain to the right of the image really kind of adds a little bit of balance to this big mountain to the left. So well done.
Yeah, very nice.
This picture. Okay, Grant, you want to do this one? Start on this one?
Yeah, sure. Sweet big bull elk. Looks like I'm gonna take a guess and say this is a Rocky Mountain National Park, Moraine Park, perhaps. It's an awesome moment. I love the profile of the antlers and the profile of the face of the elk. It's just an awesome moment with its bugle in there early morning. The only thing I would say, perhaps I might crop in a little bit from the right side and maybe even from the top down. I just, he's kind of, somewhere in there feels a little better to me. Just, with animals or people or even light, you have this sort of dynamic energy where, the subject is pushing your eye out towards one direction. And that can happen with an animal that's looking out or walking in a certain direction. And I like to leave space in the frame for that to happen, for that dynamic sort of movement to take place. And in this case, I wouldn't want to crop in from the left because the animal's looking to the left and facing that direction. And if you came in that way, it would start to feel tight and claustrophobic. And, cropping from the back, now your eye goes where the animal's eye is facing. So that's the only thing I would say. But otherwise, this is a sweet profile shot with it. Those antlers are amazing.
He's he's in the he looks to me to be in the peak of the rut because he's been giving himself mud baths and trying to make him look pretty for the ladies there. But when you were describing the crop earlier, the reason why I was able to crop it, I think from because so everybody knows I'm the one running the Lightroom on my end, so I cropped it. I think like you said, you'd like it because that was my first thought too. This really checks all the boxes for me, but the picture 100% could be improved with just a little change in composition and just that crop, like it did right there, to give it a little more space to look into to the left of the animal. But nice job. It's lighting here is great. I'll take a day like that, an overcast day, to photograph wildlife on any day. I mean, the bright sunlight looks great, but those, especially on a scene like this, give me an overcast day to give me that moodiness. It's to me, that's the way to go.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I think I've been to this spot before.
Where
that looks to me like Rocky Mountain National Park as well.
I
could be wrong.
That's what I was going to guess.
But I'm going blank on the name. It's near the Sheep Lakes. If you go past the Sheep Lakes and then make the bend and go back towards like over towards the Moraine Park area, there's a little park to the right. I'm going blank on the name. I'd have to look at a map. But anyway, there's always a lot of elk in the field during the rut, when the time of year when this photo is taken over to the right. And I think that's where it is. In fact, that group of, if I'm right about that, I've got a picture of a really tight, like a 500 millimeter shot of just the group of trees to the left. Just from the ground to the first leaves, you can see a real tight shot of that vertical shot. If I'm right about where that is. And I think that's where it is. But it could be wrong. So if you're listening, whoever took this picture, tell me if I'm right or wrong about that. I'd be curious to know. I can't see all the questions when I've got my screen up there. So you want to go first on this one, Grant? You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Well, on this one, man, there's a lot of things I really like about it. Number one is I like the drama of the sky that the sky brings to the image. Couldn't ask for a better day on just the clouds and the weather. I mean, this looks like a storm coming in the fall, and the trees are at their absolute best. I like the composition from a standpoint of, you can see the mountaintop to the right, and then it kind of, to me, it balances nice with the trees. And if I'm being really, really, really nitpicky, and this is really nitpicky, I might crop it just a little bit like that, just to kind of tighten up that right side of the image a little bit, and take a little bit of the grass off the bottom of it. So you can see that was the original shot. And all I'm doing is just cropping a little bit of these fir trees to the right out of the image a little bit. Other than that, I mean, it's from a landscape shot and just showing off habitat and the way the mountains look and the aspens look in the fall. I would have taken this shot if I was there too. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like it. I like the dark grasses as the base along the edge to sort of anchor it in. I mean, I agree with everything you said. The moodiness, the colors all work really well together. If I was going to give a super nitpicky crop, I would also maybe come in just off the top to get rid of that bright highlight right along the edge. And I'm just sort of a real, maybe not even that much, just that brightest part. I'm a very particular about edges and corners, and whenever you have something, that bright highlight right on the edge, it just, it's right in there. Well, now you're just, I guess now I created another bright highlight on the edge. So maybe the solution is not to crop it, but just to darken that. But generally when you have a really bright highlight like that right on the edge, it sort of takes my eye up to there when you probably would want your eye further down, amongst the trees. So it's super nitpicky. You could clone it, you could darken it, you could crop it, but generally I like to keep my edges and corners as clean as I can. But yeah, this is an awesome shot, really moody, takes us right there to Rocky Mountain National Park, which is, a good thing.
Can you see the questions in there in the comments on your end?
Yeah, there was.
Okay. No one's said if we're right or
Or
wrong about where that is.
no, someone did say it was in Rocky Mountain. Now I'm not sure where it went. I saw it pop
Oh,
up.
okay.
Oh yeah,
All right.
yeah, that was in Rocky Mountain National Park, as is this one.
Yeah. I've been to this spot before too. This is a neat spot. It's
This Sprague Lake or
yeah.
Beer
The Texan in me would pronounce it Sprague Lake, but I don't know how to
Sprague.
pronounce it. Sprague or Sprague.
I've always said Sprague, but I guess I don't know that for sure.
What's cool about this lake, and I did this the last time I was there, there's a creek that flows out by the parking lot, you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a million trout in that creek. And I stuck my GoPro underwater there one time and got some pictures of
nice.
those guys. So kind of cool. You want to start on this one? You want me to?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I really like this. You know, I think it's composed really well. You've done a really nice job. You know, there's sort of a school of photographers that always push back against these 50-50 reflection shots. But I personally tend to like them, especially if it's a perfect mirror. Now, there's sort of a time and place for them. You know, it's not always the right composition to take, but I don't mind it in this situation. I like having that cloud, like, you know, the spacing on it's pretty nice. And yeah, I think you just did a good job. It's like good exposure, good light, and you know, I do like on the right hand side having that tree just kind of hold steady the whole shoreline there. But yeah, it's a really strong, classic landscape composition, I would say.
I'm on my screen. It looks like there's a little. It's a little bit of a cat. I don't know if they did some color correction or maybe a filter was used. Looks like there's a little bit of a cast on the mountains. They might have just used a graduated neutral density. I'm not sure, but I'm not that. My critique may not have anything to do with. I mean, I agree with everything you said, Grant, on this picture, and I'll even wade in the weeds too. I think it's a bonus, the peppering of the golden aspens that are in the distance. But
Yeah.
I'm like you. I don't get too bent out of shape on the various photographic tropes that people get all bent out of shape about, because like I said, it's not like we're solving world hunger or curing cancer. We're just pressing a button on a machine and making something pretty, and it's supposed to be fun. And so the mirror image shot like this, I've got the same picture. I'll shoot it a million times if I'm there. So nice job, whoever took this picture.
I agree with you, and I was going to say that too. Is a lot of times during fall, I'm always looking for shots that are about the fall colors, but I also love taking pictures like this, where the fall color is just a small element that enhances the picture. It's not the subject. It's not this doesn't hit you over the head with, oh, this is autumn in Colorado, but it's just, you know, like you said, peppered through there is really nice. It's just a nice little detail, it just enhances the scene. It's not necessarily it's like a supporting actor that I like when you can get shots like that.
Yeah, me too. Good group of images in this one this time.
Mm-hmm.
This one here, okay, I don't know where this one is, but I do like, because I'm looking at it, I think whoever shot this picture, you did a great job in keeping one thing presence of mind. And one lesson I always tell people is, if you're out in the field and you've got gray overcast skies and the skies aren't interesting, the number one thing to do is try to minimize the sky as much as you can. And I think that whoever shot this picture did that when they composed it like they did, because instead of having a big gray ugly sky in the upper left or the upper part of the picture, you know, you've got the mountains that are kind of anchoring the picture in the middle, and you've got that stand of lodgepole pines that are sort of masking that ugly sky to the upper left. And then, you know, from a compositional standpoint, I think it does well. You've got the leading lines going straight towards the mountains, and then you've also got, to me, the bonus of the things that help balance this composition is just a little taste of the vegetation along the bank side, as well as the boulder that's right in the middle of the picture.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'd just say also, I think you did a really nice job of handling sort of your corners in this shot, especially your bottom two corners, and the right corner specifically, I think gives just enough grass and vegetation without creating sort of a vacuum for your eye to get sucked down there.
Yeah.
Like it just curves around really nice.
Okay.
That I mean, it's pretty sweet. It's it's kind of a classic composition, but really nice light, nice conditions. Compositionally, I don't know if there's it's very solid, very strong. The only thing, and I can't, it's hard to tell on my screen, but it does look like there's some weird stuff going on below the butte on the right, like and on the butte on the left. Kind of some dark spots. So I don't know if that's just some artifacts from a brush or something, but I don't know. It could just be a shadow or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Russell?
I don't know. I think we got a little bit of, I was kind of monitoring the back end of this. We hit a little bit of a lag all of a sudden because again, I can see the screen y'all see, and it took us about 20 seconds to switch slides just now. So do you see the Monument Valley sunrise on your end now?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I see and talking about. And
oh, that's what you're okay. So I'm seeing a lag back to me then.
Oh, okay.
Because I switched it, and then you were talking, and I'm thinking I'm not sure if he sees the picture or not. So I'm gonna start confirming with you that I've switched to the next one, because again, I can look and see the screen that I think you're seeing, and there was a little bit of lag there, so it confused me.
Gotcha.
So you were talking about this one, the artifacts in the lower right hand corner. Yeah, it looks like it's got a little bit of processing turned up. I can see what you're talking about there. Monument Valley, though, is one of those places I've never been before, but it looks stunning. I mean, we've got a mini Monument Valley in the Texas Panhandle that's cool, and if the big Monument Valley is anything like that, it's spectacular. And this picture, I mean, I think it checks the boxes for me. The starburst is pretty nice, and the clouds here are incredible. I seem to be snake bit a lot of times when I go do landscape shoots, that I get perfectly blue skies and hardly ever get any clouds. But as far as composition, I like it. I like the format. I like this panoramic format too.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, and I think this is a little bit of a preview here for you. But I think Friday I've got a video coming out on the Backcountry Journeys blog about doing panoramic. So panorama pictures are my favorite, or one of my favorite formats to do. And so there'll be an instructional video on how to do that coming up soon. I think it's maybe Friday. I don't know, but anyway, I just like the panoramic format because it's just a good way to convey those big open landscapes where you don't have a classical foreground element to kind of anchor the picture.
Yeah, I agree. I love the pano format. One other thing I'll say about this shot, or about the Monument Valley shot real quick, is I think you did a pretty good job of controlling the highlights around that sun star. Sometimes when those sun stars are coming through, those light clouds, it can be really hard to manage your highlights. And I think you did it in a pretty natural way. So that was a good job.
Nice job. This was another one. We know this is David George because his name's on the pictures. Do you see the next picture show up on your end already?
Yeah, Tetons.
Yeah. Go ahead and talk about that one too.
Yeah, so this is, again, I like that narrow panoramic format. This is a really well done shot of Schwabacher's Landing there in the Tetons. It's one of the more beautiful spots in North America. I think you did a good job here. I like the conversion to black and white. Especially, kind of like what Russell was saying about that previous shot with the gray skies. Sometimes it's kind of the same thing with pure blue skies. You try to minimize. Now you can use the blue skies to your advantage, but also sometimes I try and minimize the blue skies. And here you don't have a ton of sky. Like it's not like it looks like it may have been cropped down, or maybe this is a stitch. But I think having not a ton of sky as well as the black and white does help, and it kind of sends your eye down right onto the Tetons, the Grand in the middle, and T1O and stuff. And so I think it's really nice. It's really classic. Again, I like the mirrored reflection composition.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say the exact same thing on sometimes the blue sky is as bad as the gray sky. It's just it just kind of sucks the life and the energy out of the picture. Look, to me, blue skies look better than gray skies, but
yeah,
a lot of times you get lost in this big emptiness of nothing that you're trying to make the blue skies part of the image, but sometimes it just can't be. And I think this is a good way of doing this. And I'd be interested if David's listening. I think this is the view when you park at the lower parking lot at Schwabacher's Landing. and you walk down the trail just a little bit. If you go further right, it'll take you down to the beaver pond. I think this is right before you go further right. It's my guess.
Mm-hmm.
What's amazing is how much water it has in it. I don't know if you were there this past fall, but Jackson Lake was nearly empty. I mean, it was just about 2 or 3 feet above the flood stage of the river. So when we saw the lake there, we were seeing the river at its almost at its normal level, because they were dumping all the water out of the lake to send it downstream to people in Idaho who had senior water rights. And it was kind of crazy. I mean, it's just big mud flat out there, and as such, the river was and all the streams around it were down a little bit. So it was this. I don't know when this shot was taken, but it looks like it had quite a bit more water than when we saw it about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago.
Torres del Paine, one of my favorite places on planet Earth. I love it. Love this shot. Love that park. Yeah, this is awesome. This is, I've been down there. I spent about 6 months down in Patagonia when I was in college, and I hiked all over these mountains, backpacked for weeks on end. So I have a special connection to these spots. So just about any picture you put up of these towers, I'd like. But I do like this one a lot. I think this is just such a great shot because it's sort of an unusual perspective. You're up that dirt road, from the entrance a little ways, and it kind of separates the 3 towers a little more than sort of the classical view. But what I really like about this shot is the way, and I don't know if you may have done some processing to enhance this, and I think it was good, but having that sort of arc of dark clouds around the towers that sort of frames the towers, it frames them really nicely and sets them up to be sort of the star of the show.
Yeah, my comments were going to be pretty simplistic in that regard too, is saying I wasn't going to probably not be as eloquent as what you are, Grant. I was just going to say it's cool how the clouds create a frame around the mountains.
Yeah,
that's nice. Nice job, David.
Yeah, very nice. Makes me want to go there.
Me too. Okay, I think our lag is gone. I can see it's switching in real time now, so I think we're good.
Yeah.
We are. You want to start on this one? You want me to?
Go ahead.
Well, my first comment on this one is the people in the pictures. I don't know if that's family and that was trying to show the scale of the arches, or if it's just tourists there. If it's family, I kind of, to me, this is sort of divergent on how I look at this picture. If it's people you want to keep them in there. If it's people you don't know, I think my first thought would be to try to clone them out and just where you couldn't see anybody in the picture, because if to me from and this may be my editorial and commercial training coming out of me, but to me, if the people aren't a little more prominent in the scene, if they're that small, they're kind of detracting from the picture. Compositionally, I think it's done well. The 2 things I would think about is, one, light's a little hot. You might, try to get there a little earlier, and that's perfect case scenario like we're talking about. You're there when you're there. But secondly, I might try to just clone the people out of the picture if they're people that don't mean something to you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that goes back, and Russell and I both like putting people in our pictures, and I do it all the time. I love even if it is a little cliche, I love the small person in a big landscape shot. But I think it needs to be done maybe a little more intentionally, where the person is in the shot placed purposely, or having 5 or 6 people in there. Again, if you don't know them, it feels a little bit like, you question, like, are they helping to show scale of the image, or is they more of a distracting, because I'm looking and going like, well, what are all these people doing?
Yeah.
If you had 1 person or 2 people, especially if they're standing up on that rock on the against the sky on the lower left, or something like along that nature, it sort of it shows the scale a little more intentionally. but compositionally, I like it. And again, similar to that image of the monument, the Washington Memorial, I think you did a really good job of keeping the space on that upper arch. Yeah, right there. That gap of sky is really critical, and I think that's a good job of seeing that and composing that way.
Yeah, I was
And
about to go back and mention that too. That was a nice job of that.
yeah. Is this island in the sky, Canyonlands? It looks like.
I'm not sure where this is. I know I've never been there before.
I was just this last week, Thanksgiving, my parents and wife and I did a 100-mile bike ride around Island in the Sky right there. I believe that's where it is. We were down on the White Rim Road. So yeah, this is an awesome spot. And this is an awesome shot, actually.
Colors are beautiful.
Yeah, the colors are beautiful. The sky is dramatic. I always love dead trees, up against the sky like that with the scraggly branches. Yeah, I think it's great. What do you think, Russell?
My first impression when I saw this picture was to me there's a little bit too much space over here on the right side of the picture. But then as I kind of study it more, and that's why sometimes my first impression is not a right impression. As I study it more, you see this part, this rock, and these branches kind of sticking out. And so again, we talked about intentional composition earlier. I think this one's done intentionally. The thing that makes this picture for me is just how beautiful a contrast that this looks like. That looks like a plant called I'm going blank. Mormon's tea. And that looks like maybe some sort of species of sage. But those two complementary colors right there.
Yeah.
On top of the reds, on top of the blues, that's phenomenal to me, the ones that are in the foreground. So I don't know if you intentionally put those colors in the foreground as kind of a balance point against what's in the background, but I think that little piece right there makes that picture so much better than just the tree in it by itself.
Yeah, totally agree. And another thing that's interesting about this shot is it really works so much also because of the clouds behind it. If this was shot on a bluebird day, I think my comment would be that, you have to include so much space to include the top of that tree. And then that's going to create a huge empty space in the upper left of blue sky. So, this is one of those compositions that, you had a lot working for you. And I think the clouds really work well, but it's an interesting thought to think about how some shots really work with certain conditions. And then you could go back with different conditions and it'd just be like, not quite as strong, but I think you nailed it here.
Yep. Hey, William, I'm just going to throw this out there for, I think it was David that took the picture. William asked if a star filter was used on the picture at Monument Valley. So if you're listening, David, and you want to chime in there, let us know. We'll let William know the answer to that. This looks like somewhere back east. It's refreshing to see pictures back east. I'm a tree guy. I like trees. I was raised in the woods of Northeast Texas, and I've always liked big trees. And to go back to go back east and see the trees in the fall, it's a pretty special treat. My thoughts on this picture here is I like the overall composition. I like it, but the only thing that's a little troublesome to me is Grant talked about the edges a while ago, and to me it feels like that this tree over on the left is kind of creeping into the edge a little bit too much for my taste. I don't know if and the difference between the tree on the left and the tree on the right. The tree on the right, we've at least got a little context in my mind. You can see the trunk it's coming from, but it almost looks like that tree is just kind of hanging out there. I don't know if you can switch perspective or switch lenses a little bit, but or maybe even go a little bit wider so you can see, kind of give a little context to where that tree on the left side of the picture is coming from. But the lighting's great. The colors are, it's always phenomenal to see it at that time of year. And the fact that the river sort of winds through in the background and this kind of plays a supporting role in this picture, I think is a bonus to the picture.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with your comments on the tree. And yeah, to me, having that river in the background is just so critical because it just kind of gives your eyes somewhere to go and land back there. And it just kind of completes the scene really nice.
Yep.
Mm, this is cool.
That is cool.
Is this Eastern Sierra, perhaps?
It's a
Not
big
sure
old,
where that is.
it's a big old moon wherever it is. Obviously this was shot with the telephoto lens to get the moon that size in the picture. Uh, you look at, we see the moon all the time, but to get a good picture of the moon, it's a little bit harder than it looks. I mean, because a lot of times, uh, if you, especially like this, if you're shooting with the telephoto lens, just any little bit of vibration can be seen. And I don't know if I mean, the picture when I'm looking at looks a little soft. It may be vibrations from shooting with the telephoto. It may be just the fact you're shooting through a lot of air at the moon to make it a little soft like that. But compositionally, I think it's nice from just a purely an aesthetic standpoint. I think it's nice because I think the colors are nice, and the fringe, the light halo around the moon, that fringing around the moon is not really much you can do about it, especially that time of night when the moon just sort of looks like that when you're looking at it with the naked eye. But I like the drama of this picture though overall. The softness of it that I'm seeing on my end, I can forgive because I think the drama and the colors in it sort of outweigh that.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, and I agree with all that. And the only other thing I would say is I think you did a good job of getting your exposure. These shots of the moon at dusk can be really actually tricky to balance the exposure because the moon is so much brighter than everything around it. And yet, if you're like HDR or do bracket it, sometimes you can end up, blending it together where the moon is too dark and it just doesn't look right. Or even out of a single exposure, getting that balance to where the moon looks natural is really tricky. I think it's a good job.
I'm a fan of, a lot of people take nighttime shots on moonless nights, but I'm a fan of taking pictures on moonlit nights and using the moon as my light source because if you think about
Yeah.
it, the moon's a giant golden reflector in the sky,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like clockwork. I mean, if you've got a 3/4 to a full moon, if you set your camera at ISO 100, your exposure is going to be 5 minutes at f5.6. If you've got dark sky area every single time, and if you shoot at that setting, Grant, it's just and use the moon as a light source. And again, same rule as when you're taking pictures of the sun. Keep the sun at your back. You got the moon at your back, and it's
Mm-hmm.
illuminating like an old building or some old ruins or a tree or something or a dead tree or something like that. It's a beautiful way to shoot pictures. So I'd encourage
Yeah.
everyone to try
Yeah,
it.
totally. And I mean, you can essentially think of the moon like the sun,
Yeah.
and figure out when the moonrise and the moon set are, and treat them like sunrises and sunsets.
And it's
Um,
again, it's just a big. It's you're still photographing by sunlight, but the sunlight's being reflected off a giant reflector in the sky.
yeah, this is pretty sweet too. The Northern Lights shot. Is that what you're looking at?
Yep.
This is in Norway. Looks like. Pretty sure. Um, yeah, this is cool. I just ran a Northern Lights trips in Fairbanks, a couple months ago, and the Northern Lights is like that's like advanced level shooting. It's really hard to shoot Northern Lights because you have to you have all the difficulties of shooting in the dark at night, high ISO, long exposures, but you have the Northern Lights that move so fast a lot of the times that you end up shooting you have to figure out ways to shoot like 1 to 5 second exposures just to capture the movement of the aurora. But I think you did a really nice job here, and this is a tricky exposure to deal with where you have Northern Lights, looks like a lot of moonlight, as well as city lights. But it feels pretty natural to me, and
It does.
compositionally, I like it as well.
And this to me the stars in the picture are a bonus. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It's harder than what it looks, and especially if you've never seen the Northern Lights in person, the camera plays a little bit of a trick on you. There you can see the colors like the greens in the aurora, but they're to my eye they're kind of faint. I mean, you don't see it really as saturated as what you see it on the pictures, and so that kind of adds it to me. Is what you're saying, Grant? That adds another level of difficulty because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when you're photographing the aurora, it looks like you're photographing some just wispy clouds,
Yeah.
but that are sort of moving around at a quicker rate. But but to be able to get everything to come together like David obviously did in this picture, it's that all of a sudden you've got a magical picture on your hands.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Dave gets around.
Yeah, back in the Lofoten, still in Lofoten, I should say. This is awesome. I love these panoramic formats you're shooting here. Yeah, this is such a classic shot. I've not been there, but I've seen a lot of images of this area. This is, these red, sort of fishing huts or whatever they're used for with the peaks. It just looks incredible. And, what I like about this shot is you have sort of that iconic view of, but you have that wider format to sort of really give a context of just how dramatic these fjords are and the cliffs that just rise right out of the sea. I think it's pretty well done.
Yeah, it's to me, I think about balance a lot and how once you arrange everything sort of in the viewfinder, sort of how does it balance? I think the red of the buildings from a balance standpoint, a color balance standpoint, the red of the buildings, and I see the green and the white one in there, but the predominantly red building really, to me, adds a nice counterpoint to the blue sky that's in the upper left, where you didn't get lucky and have clouds there, but sometimes you got to be at the right place at the right time. And I think, Dave, you did this. And to echo what I said earlier and what Grant just reiterated, the panoramic format absolutely works in this picture. Nice job. This one's pretty. Like we said earlier, some people talk about reflections I take this picture all the time too. So to me, the autumn leaves, the little shack with the red door and the green canoe, all three together just are, it's like I don't know that you could have placed them at in any better juxtaposition than what they are there. The only thing I would get a little bit nitpicky about is I might try to tighten the crop up just a little bit. I'm just seeing if I can, I don't know. That's not perfect, but something like that. I'd have to work on a little more, but it's just the one thing that's a little distracting to me, and you can't do anything about it. I mean, maybe you could in post-processing, but this building over here is a little bit distracting to me. And then it's got the ensuing reflection in the water. And that's why I'm saying it might be best if it had a little bit tighter crop. Other than that, lighting on this is perfect. And it's just a beautiful scene. Quiet scene.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really like it. This is one of those shots that I think totally works as is. And I think you do some pretty dramatic crops into here. And there's several different pictures you can pull out. My mind immediately is, and I don't know if this is the right decision. This is one of those things you just sort of play with after you shoot it. But I think you could almost crop out both buildings and have sort of either a vertical or a square right in the center with just have the trees, the strong trunks of the trees right there in the center left, and then the green boat. And it just sort of simplifies it. And now, yeah, somewhere in there, yeah. Now you're looking at now the boat is sort of the subject, and it's a little simpler. I'm not sure if it's the right decision, but it's a decision. Let's put it that way.
And the cool thing with digital, we all know we're playing on house money, so just take lots of pictures, try different things.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to let you know, I'm looking at the time right now. It's 12:53. We're going to go over time on this. So if you guys are still with us and you want to hear us out to the end, we're going to finish up this critique. We've got about, just so you know, Grant, we've got 10 more images to go. And and then we'll be done. Now, I'm going to use a few context clues when I look at this picture, but I'm looking at two species of flowers I can definitely identify, and that's the bluebonnets and the Indian paintbrushes in this scene. I'm not sure. This looks like crimson clover, the vestiges of crimson clover, or white clover that these little white spots are, but this looks suspiciously like Texas to me, Grant. Now, I'm going to talk about this in a couple of ways, and again, this goes back to what I said earlier about best case scenario. I don't know if and maybe we can't crop it in post processing. Maybe it'd be different for a better lens to use. I don't know that crop makes it any better. But my first thought is to me, the water and the blue flowers are sort of the star of the show. I would sort of recompose it to get rid of some of the white off the bottom. To me, it's just a little bit wasted space. I think it when I crop it like I just did to there we go. When I crop it like I just did, to me, it kind of focuses my eye more on the sort of quiet pastoral scene, the bench, the bridge, and the swans that are out there. But that's that's playing Monday morning quarterback too when I do that. Other than that, I think a little earlier time of day, swans probably aren't going to be there. Maybe not. I don't know, but I'm being really, really nitpicky on that. It's just a time of the day when it's a little warmer light than what we have here. But other than that, I think I like the attempt. I think the scene is nice and it's a beautiful scene. And again, it kind of looks to me like Texas.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just a real peaceful shot. You have all these different elements that all kind of converge. I think I like the crop like how you just did, cropping the left tree out like you just had it. I tend not to like to have vertical lines going straight up the horizon, or straight up the edge, I should say. For whatever reason, that kind of distracts me. But I don't mind the tree on the right because of its the curvature of it. It kind of curves into the frame rather than paralleling the frame.
That's another context clue. That's a pecan tree.
It's got to be Texas. Plus,
and notice that I pronounced it correctly when I said pecan.
Pecan or pecan?
It's not a pecan. They're pecans.
Pecan. Okay. I like this crop too, just because you give a little more space for the swans as well. But yeah, I mean, this is really nitpicky. This is not like Russell said. This is it's not. It's a very strong composition, regardless. I like it.
And two, a lot of times, like with wildlife, you can improve a wildlife picture just by squatting down and getting lower. And same thing in landscape photography. Sometimes it's just as subtle as moving left or moving right just a couple of feet to try to change your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
This is nice.
This is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, this is I'm not sure where this is, but I like, this is one of those auroral displays where you just get it all across the sky, and it's pretty phenomenal. And it looks fairly early in the evening as well, so I don't know if that's the case because it looks like just right at twilight.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I could dig into the metadata and see if it shows what time that picture is taken. But I mean, I'm getting off the point here, but my point is that's a beautiful shot. I mean, I think it's like you said earlier, it's not an easy shot to get, and to kind of pull it off, that's a fairly hard shot to balance, to be able to get some, not only enough subtle detail in the sky where you can see the clouds, you can see the stars, but also you can see some detail in the trees that line along the backside of the bank of this lake here.
Yeah, I really like it. I mean, technically, I think you nailed the exposure. I love seeing the fall color with the aurora. That's so cool. Yeah. This is one of those, and compositionally, I think you did. I actually just shot a shot just like this, and have almost the identical composition with the horizon line. Is I like how you have it almost centered, but not quite. And you're also not quite on the rule of thirds. You're in that kind of a no man's land, but I mean that as a good way. Is you want to have almost a mirrored reflection, but still have a little more emphasis in your sky than in the reflection. And to me, this is my opinion, my personal opinion, but I think it feels natural, and I like the placement of the horizon. And that's always a tricky spot to do in these sort of mirrored shots, because it's like, do you want to, if you crop up, now you're putting more attention on the sky. If you cropped it down and you truly put it in the middle, now it's like balance is like, and then you have to ask yourself, does the reflection carry as much weight as what's in the sky? And those are all subjective questions and answers. And but I like where you put it right here. I like the exposure, and like what I was mentioning earlier, it does look a little crooked to me, and it may be straight, but it may also be like maybe your camera was straight, but the lake shore makes it look a little crooked. I don't know. This is one of those ones that I'd be playing back and forth with this, and I may end up just bringing it back to where it was. But yeah,
I'm with you on the.
yeah, there you go.
I'm with you on the. I think the reflection is actually a little more impressive than the sky. So I think when I first looked at this picture, I started at the bottom and looked all the way up, and that's how I look. I think this composition is nice.
Yeah.
This
That's
is
interesting.
I know. I guess I've got two thoughts on this one. The first one is the first one's really, I mean, it's not like the second one's negative. The first one's really, really positive in the fact that I don't know if this was post-processed any or if this is natural color, but the colors in this picture to me are stunning. It's the grays and the sort of the hint of blues, but then the kind of the purplish it works for me. And that's the first thing that caught my eye when I looked at this picture. This tree that kind of comes off to the left here, it's sort of like we talked about earlier. It kind of dangles out there, in my opinion. Again, that's just me being really, really nitpicky. The thing I wonder about in pictures like this is what's to the right even more. If I was to, I mean, is there a walkway I can walk out there and shoot more the front of the chairs, or is this the only angle I get? That's the thing I don't know. So I have a hard time critiquing images like this just because I don't know if you can move to a different angle. If you could move to a different angle, I sort of feel like it might have been a little more interesting to shoot straight down the chairs as opposed to shooting from behind them. But that's just a personal preference too. I usually try not to take a picture of animals facing away from me or people facing away from me, or in this case, even chairs facing away from me. I think it's a little more dynamic image if you're either beside it or 3/4 to it. But another thing I might have done here, Grant, if I could, I might have walked over there if you could and turned the chairs around just to kind of add, I've done that before too, just to change the scene. You just turn them around, take the picture, turn them back around the way they were. And I don't think anybody's going to complain about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything you said. I mean, it's hard to know exactly without it being there, and maybe they shot this exhaustively from all angles. But there is something sort of hauntingly beautiful about this shot. Like yeah, there's just something that kind of draws you in. I think it's the fog and
Right.
the color palette, and it's just kind of like there is something about this shot, this emotion you get from it. It just kind of makes you want to stare at it for a while. I think it's well done, but I do agree with you that I mean it would be interesting to see different angles of the chairs, but who knows? It is nitpicky. Who knows exactly what it was like.
It's kind of cool. Old, looks like a broken down, looks like a log garage is what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
It's definitely a log structure. Yeah, it looks like a garage or some kind of barn. Yeah, this is, I mean, I don't really have anything. I don't know that this shot could be, could be improved any at all. I mean, it's a nice perspective. It, sort of follows all the rules of photography. It's, again, we talked about reflection, but this one has the added bonus of all the fog sort of lifting off the water in this shot. So, I don't, I will be, if this is me playing Monday morning quarterback again, so take this with a grain of salt, what I'm about to say. I wonder what 5 minutes from then would have looked like if the whole mountain would have lit up or the whole mountain would have been in shadow. I mean, I'd be curious to kind of see what's next after that. And, when you do these image critiques, Grant, we've kind of alluded to it the whole time we've been talking about these pictures, but we've never been overt about it. This may be one of 30 pictures that we're taking. We're just seeing the one that whoever submitted this picture chose to submit. So I'd be interested in seeing again, did the top of the mountain light up and just the middle part in the shade, or sort of what this looked like 5 minutes before or 5 minutes later. But other than that, it's a beautiful shot.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was just going to say is, this shot is a standalone shot. I don't have anything really to say about it other than to say when I look at this scene, I can almost envision like 4 or 5 different compositions to take. And, maybe the photographer did take those. I could see a shot that's really tight just on that barn and that red tree next to it, without any sky. I'd be interested to see what a big, wide, long panorama that extended further to the right would show. And again, that's exactly something like that. It's not a comment on this picture, but just the idea that and like you said, is we're just looking at one picture that got submitted. There could have been 100 pictures that were shot this morning or evening. But I think it's a good example of just this is shoot exhaustively and shoot all your compositional elements. I know Russell knows this as a magazine photographer, but you always kind of roll up to a scene and you got to get the shots for every different type of composition for every different use. You got to get the cover shot, the double page spread, the the fine art print composition, and I'd encourage people just to shoot exhaustively through these when you have these incredible scenes. Like, well, there you go. That looks like it was probably the same same location, right?
Yeah. It's a pretty area. My only comment here is the mountains in the middle look a little bit overexposed. I mean, something you could easily fix in post processing, especially with one of the masks that are available in Lightroom. Other than that, I mean, I think it's a nice shot. I mean, it's it's hard to see outside the bounds. As far as I like that we talk about the edges all day, but the edges are clean on this one. It's hard to really kind of look outside the bounds and what if you could have shifted a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and got a foreground object. I don't know, but this is a good example of those pictures too that make if you wanted to shoot a variety of compositions. This thing has a little. If you look in the lower right, it's got a little something there. That's why I said what I said earlier about not sure what else is there. But this is I'm going to go ahead and do this. 6x17 is the original sort of panoramic crop that all the cameras used to shoot, and I always like to kind of look and see what it looked like as a panoramic. And then I may not be a perfect crop, but just to kind of give you an idea of sort of to your point earlier, shooting all kinds of different shots instead of just one.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, and that's a tricky exposure too, like you're saying, with the highlights and then that island in the front. But it's good.
This one's nice. Go ahead and talk about this one if you want to.
Yeah,
by the way, for those listening, we're down to our last 6 pictures.
I really like this composition. I like your foreground and kind of how it fits into the background, especially that rock that's placed right in between the two peaks. This is a shot to me that I see has such a strong foreground, middle ground, background, and piecing together these really complicated compositions can be really challenging. And I think you've done it, and I think what you've done really well is the spacing, especially this rock that's on the left side, the kind of dome-shaped one, and how it's cleanly got a separation between the mid-ground rocks. I think is really critical. If you'd gone lower and those bumped into it, that would be a problem. And I think you've done a really good job of spacing it out. And if I was going to be really nitpicky, maybe I would have come up or moved just slightly so that the reflection of that second peak, or the kind of the peak on the left, the summit of the reflection of the summit was just spaced out a little bit between that rock, kind of in the middle center. But that's really nitpicky. The only other thing that I'm really nitpicky too is that whatever that thing is that's floating down on the bottom right along the edge, that feels like it just, there we go. It feels a little distracting to me, and now it's like cleaned up and my eye doesn't drift down there.
The first thing I thought about this when I saw this picture, and this is completely subliminal, but if you look in the background, you got big mountain to the right, little mountain to the left, and then it's like a mirror image on the rocks, and right at the foreground, you got big rock on the left, little rock on the right, and they kind of fit. It's almost like a puzzle piece how the reflections fit in there with the rock. So I don't know if that was intentional or not, but if it was, nice job of being on the lookout for that.
Yeah, it's you're always looking for foregrounds that complement the background, and that's a really good example of it.
I judged the contest last July, a contest here in Texas called Wildlife in Focus, and it's a big contest that raises money for conservation. And they've got a category there called the Hand of Man. And I've always generally tried to avoid power lines or anything like that in my outdoor photos. But the fact is, it's there, and it's part of that stuff is an endemic part of nature now. And so when I look at shots like this, my first thought is I don't know if I would have taken this picture because of the highlights in the background. But then again, you might not have found that scene anywhere else. And then thirdly, it's it is what it is. That's what you saw. I think from a purely a technical standpoint, I might try to crop it just a little. Two things actually: crop it a little bit so that pole that's closest to the right kind of dominates the right a little more. And then the other thing is you got a little bit of something on the sensor right here on the left.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good crop. I love the quality of light there you have right in the bottom on that sort of frozen reflection. It's just beautiful. Maybe, and now this is another example of the horizon looks a little tilted, but it may be perfect. This is a tricky one to straighten out because the horizon looks a little tilted, but if you tilt it too much, then the poles will look tilted. So
Yeah.
maybe it's good where it's at. I don't know. It's like that third pole is probably the straightest one that has the least amount of distortion. So or maybe somewhere in there. There you go. That looks better. That's nice.
Yep. Yeah, the colors are beautiful. Same way on this one. The colors are I professed my love of big trees earlier, but the colors here are beautiful as well.
Yeah, this is an awesome shot. I think the only thing I'd say is you probably could come up a little from the bottom. Maybe, I don't know. And come up. Somewhere in there feels a little tighter to me. But I love the juxtaposition between these old man-made structures and the environments in which they live.
Yep. I don't know if you heard that or not, but I had a phone call coming in. Did I lose you?
No,
okay.
I got you.
Yeah. I've got a Mac and my phone is connected to my computer, so my computer rings. And,
oh, I didn't hear it.
Yeah. Well, okay, good. I heard it. It was loud and clear in my ears. This is another panoramic picture that was submitted. I think here's the one thing I can't. Here's my one big critique of this picture. This point right here where the rock touches the horizon pinches a little too much, and for me, feels a little uncomfortable. But I don't know if the person taking the picture could have gotten any higher to kind of give a little bit more separation from that pinch point. Other than that, I don't know if just a little tighter crop to try to eliminate even more sky. I'm struggling with this one because the sky, it's such a straight horizon line across there. The sky looks almost artificial to me, and I'm not insinuating that it is. I'm just saying visually how it looks to me. It's a little bit confusing when I first looked at it. That was my first impression when I saw it. But I think a little tighter crop would help this picture a little bit, just to eliminate some of the sky and eliminate some of that dead space, what I consider dead space to the right, and then maybe even come in here with a graduated mask and add a little bit of color to the sky there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That was my first thought too, was that rock was a little tight right there. And again, without, like you said, and I think the other reason that it feels even tighter is because it's right in the center. I think when you cropped it out and put it off to the side, it was a little better, but I've been in that situation so many times where maybe this is a flat beach and they had their tripod as high as they could get it and just barely got it under the horizon. But yeah, maybe what would have helped is your comment to the sky, which I actually felt the same, is maybe you get lower and have that rock pass through the horizon line, and then that would eliminate the pinch point as well as sort of integrate the sky into the composition a little bit more.
And I think on this panorama shot, kind of the same thing as earlier is as opposed to pinching the sky down on this one, I think I'd like to have it open up a little bit because it feels a little too close for me above the limbs here, and it also looks like I like the overall composition. I like the dead trees against the starkness of the sand. I think to myself, I wonder if you'd have got a little bit lower to try to minimize how much water you can see. Still have a little bit of water you can see, but try to minimize how much water you can see and add a little bit more space above the limbs in the sky.
Yeah, and I agree. And I don't know if this picture has been cropped or if this was like a stitch that, that's kind of all you have. But yeah, I think you're going to want more space on there because especially with these oceans, you really got to pay attention to the straightness of them. And it looks like it's tilted a little bit. And then if you were to straighten that out, you're going to now crop out the top of those branches. So, sure. I mean, there's ways to fix that. You can artificially clone in a little more sky or something. But yeah, I agree. It feels a little tight, but it is an interesting shot. And, you have some nice light happening back there too. I like it.
It is. And here's the last one. Wow. So my first impression on this is when I look at it, I like how the rock right in the middle is just illuminated, but the foreground is not, but the background is, not, it's at such a distance. It's kind of more hazy and it's a little more subtle. Everything makes my eyes point right at that rock in the middle, which I think that's a good thing. And it looks to be shot at I don't know if I can see if they strip the metadata out of this. I can't see it looks to be a slow exposure too. So yeah, I think it looks nice.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. Speaking, I think maybe you could crop some of that top of the sky out a little bit. I really like that. I like the sort of creative decision you've made to probably put like a 10 stop or 6 stop neutral density and get that real long exposure and really smooth out the water. I think that works really well, and it kind of adds that sort of dreamlike feeling to this image. Yeah, and the light's really nice. I think the composition's really strong. Foreground push shoots through right into the middle, midground, and background. Really well done.
Well, Grant, hang on a second. Let me make a few switches around here. Let me stop the screen sharing. Let me turn can you see me again?
Yep.
That's the worst part of the whole webinar right here is just seeing me. We got people working on the internet in the area, and that maybe explains some of the lags we're having today. I didn't know that was going on until my wife came in and told me right before we started today. I got a couple of people. Dave said it, and I think Sandra said it that they added a few pictures late that we didn't get in here. So I'll go back and take a look at those, and I'll make sure that I send you kind of my thoughts. And if you want to join on that too, Grant, you can do that as well. We can do it via email or something like that. And if you have anything else, just follow up with me. Is this your first webinar, Grant?
It is, yeah.
This is about my 500th. And so I'm not going to volunteer you for this, but I'll volunteer me for it. If you have any questions or comments, if you think of anything else later on, feel free to reach out to me, russell@russellgraves.com. Just send me an email. And sometimes I don't get to it right away. It may take me a day or two, but I always answer emails. So just feel free to reach out to me. And if you're one of the ones that we didn't get to today because your pictures might have came in a little bit late, let me know, and I'll make sure I go back and get all the pictures out of that group and get my thoughts on them. I'm looking at a few comments here. People confirmed that some of our locations, Rocky Mountain National Park, and some of the other ones. No star filter was used in the Monument Valley shot that we saw. And then the fall picture, I think the one with the river is the new River Gorge, West Virginia. Macho Man Randy Savage is here with us, and he asked, "Do you know real name?" Yeah, it's Randy Savage is Macho Man's real name. And we just got a lot of thank yous. Thanks, Janice. Hope you're doing well. Janice was on a trip with me a couple of years ago to wintertime in Yellowstone, and Janice also says Adirondacks. I'm not sure which picture she's talking about there. I'm guessing maybe one of the shots with a boat or the little cottage in the background. So
that's what I would guess.
Yeah, and Janice, I saw that you're on one of my Alaska trips next September, so that'll be great. I'm looking forward to that. Well, Grant, what do you have coming up next? Where are you going to be next?
I'm going to be in Yellowstone in next year. Yellowstone, Zion, Fairbanks. Got a loaded schedule, as I'm sure you do as well. A lot of cool places. I'm looking forward to it.
Pretty busy. In about another hour and a half, I'm headed to the airport to get on the plane to go to Bosque del Apache out in New Mexico.
Oh,
and so we've got a workshop starting in a couple of days, and looking forward. We've got 4 people that have been on trips with me before, so I'm looking forward to that. And we've got another 3 that I haven't been on trips with before. I'm not sure if they've been on Backcountry Journeys tours, but it's always good to see old friends and meet new friends when we're out in the field. And then, just got a lot of stuff coming up in Florida and Alaska and everywhere else. It ought to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it's 1:21 right now. I appreciate everybody joining us today. I hope, you found mine and Grant's comments in the way they were meant to be, and that's constructive and helpful to everyone involved. I mean, the things we're telling you are the same kind of things that you'll hear if you ever go on a trip with us with Backcountry Journeys. Sort of the positive reinforcement. Again, it's nobody's curing cancer here, so by taking pictures. So we try to be positive. We try to be encouraging and realize that if we were to open ourselves up to the same kind of critique, we'd hear the same things that we're about our pictures that we're telling about other people's pictures, Grant.
Totally.
So we're just we're thankful that you guys give us the opportunity to look at your great pictures and give our comments and our thoughts about them. One other thing too is that I was remiss about saying this. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving over this past week. It's always good to slow down a little bit and spend time with friends and family. And Christmas is right around the corner, so I'm always looking forward to that. And in the meantime, have fun afield, and again, let us know if you need anything. So, Grant, I'm going to sign off. I will see you later, and take care, my friend, and I'll see everybody soon.
All right. Thank you, everyone.